And the only way you get assholes like me to move fast is I fear I'm going to lose the deal. FOMO is the only thing that gets investors to move fast. Otherwise, let's watch you for a little bit longer. I'm just going to get more data.
Welcome to the Inside the Fund podcast, where we go on the other side of the table and learn about capital raising from VCs. I'm Helena Fogarty. I'm a fundraising expert who helps startups raise their seed and Series A rounds. And today I'm speaking with Andrew Ackerman, two-time startup founder, venture capitalist, and author of The Entrepreneur's Odyssey, which I have right here. Andrew brings over 2 decades of startup investing experience with over 70 investments under his belt. He's a seed to Series A investor, currently focused on prop tech and construction tech, and previously built industry verticals at Dreamit Ventures. Beyond investing, he's a professor of entrepreneurship, corporate innovation consultant, and a prolific writer with articles published in Fortune, Forbes, and other major publications. And of course, the author of The Entrepreneur's Odyssey, the startup how-to guide disguised as a novel. His journey from consultant to serial entrepreneur to angel investor and then to VC gives him a unique 360-degree perspective on what it takes to build and fund successful companies. Thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure entirely.
You do have an incredible background to give insight into how to raise money and how to speak to investors.
Yep. I've been on both sides of the table and a couple of other sides we haven't even touched.
We should talk about that. So talk to me a little bit about your origin story.
My origin story.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. So I was actually born in Israel. You can tell from the accent. No. My parents are both American. My dad was studying medicine and then socialized medicine firsthand. It's like, okay, we're going back to the States. So I was raised mostly in New York, first in the city, then in the burbs. Then college, I went to Baltimore. That's a long time to be in Baltimore. And then I went to Chicago
I like
for
how you
business
said
school.
Baltimore.
Yeah, they tell
Said
you
it
they
the
have
right
to say
way.
it that way. Exactly.
Yeah, nice. And are there any tips to saying Chicago right?
No, I'm in Chicago. No, you can say it any way you want.
And so when did you start your first companies?
Okay. So I'm a little older than I look. So when I graduated business school, like this whole startup hustle didn't exist. Like you came out of business school, especially you came out of University of Chicago's business school. There's like a door on the right for banking, a door on the left for consulting. By the way, I'm a little bit dyslexic. I realize I use the wrong hands. And then if you were there for marketing, you were in the wrong school, and that was it.
Right.
So I knew I didn't want to be an iBanker, so I went into consulting for 4 years. And then somewhere around like 1999, I'm on this project in, sure, why not, London, of all places. And we were working on this pre-merger, and we were using this interwebs thing to get all their data together without either side seeing it.
Right.
And I remember seeing this, I'm like, that's it.
Yeah.
This didn't exist when I finished business school, but now it does, and this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Amazing. So what'd you do?
Oh, I quit my job, moved back to New York, spent about 9 months working at Kaplan Test Prep because I needed something to do until I got into a startup.
Yep.
And then within 9 months, I was at a startup working nights and weekends. And before the end of the year, I quit and I was the third founder.
That's amazing. But that timing is tricky.
Yeah, if you were keeping track at home, that was, I think my notice was in March of 2000.
Yep.
And if you remember, in 2001, the world kind of ended for a while.
Yeah.
In fact, we had a term sheet at one point, and the VC fund was in the World Trade Center. The term sheet literally evaporated on 9/11.
That's terrible.
Yeah. Oh, the guy that we were talking, he's okay.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, I haven't spoken to him in 20 plus years. He made it through, but it's good you're a VC on the road a lot.
Yeah.
But that offer for investment evaporated, and then the world kind of turned on us, and then there was no offers for investment. So.
Yeah, because I was thinking about April of 2020 because I was working in a startup at that point, and all the money dried up.
Yeah, a lot of the money dried up because suddenly we realized, oh, eyeballs aren't a valid business model.
Yeah.
And then 2 years later, it started to get a little bit better.
Yeah. Incredible. It's always so interesting to me, at least, and I hope to other people, how external factors drive everything. You know, we like to think that everything's about raising money for your startup, but if the market contracts, if there's a crisis, monetary crisis, a financial or literally, September 11th, like things stop happening.
Or COVID for people
Yeah,
a little younger,
COVID.
like it
Yeah.
comes out of left field. There's nothing you can do about it. And if you're in a startup world, like there's doubly nothing you can do about it. There's so much more that's out of your hands. So you got to be a little crazy to do this kind of thing.
Yeah. I remember because I was a .comer. I remember I couldn't get arrested. I couldn't get
you
arrested.
could if you tried.
I could have gotten arrested, but it was very difficult to find a job
Oh yeah, that's true too.
during the contraction.
Yeah,
That's what I meant to say.
true in many places.
Yeah.
By the way, if there's anybody who's listening who's like, yeah, you guys are old. I don't remember 2001. There's
I
an
wasn't born.
awesome documentary
Yeah.
called Startup.com.
Yeah.
It's about the rise and fall of a company called GovWorks.
Yeah.
And when I was running an accelerator, I rented out a small theater so that my my investment companies, my portfolio companies could watch it.
Yeah.
Just to see what it was like.
Yeah.
And one came over to me like afterwards and goes like, hey, thanks, I'm scared shitless now.
I have to look about it.
Yeah, but it's an absolutely God honest like truth about what it was like to live through that period of time, down to like, oh my God, I did that.
Yeah.
I did that wrong too.
Yep. Well, what it reminds me of is I was talking to a friend of mine who is big into NFTs still.
Really, still. Wow.
I mean, he's in the, it's still happening.
Okay. I mean, it's not
And he's
quite
still
at bell
getting well
bottoms,
paid,
but as long
and-
as,
But it reminds me of what it was like to be a .comer and where he's at right now. Like, the market just went away for a while.
Yep. Yeah. And listen,
Yeah.
like things become hot and they become not, especially so with something like NFTs. What we see sometimes, and it's a little bit more grounded, but it's still a bit of a phase, is sometimes like certain technologies or certain models will get hot. So, oh, it's blockchain. And I'm just talking about the crypto side. I'm talking about the actual, chain. Like, great, we can do all these things we couldn't do before. And then like founders come and they start sprinkling the blockchain fairy dust on their startups. It's got nothing to do with blockchain, but they do it. And right now we're in the AI fairy dust, right? Oh, it's with AI. I'm like, I don't really think it is. And then you argue with them, they're like, no, it's AI. And then they argue with you, it's agentic AI. And I'm like, I know that term doesn't mean what you think it means. But they become hot, and then everyone has to jump on it, whether it really has anything to do with their startup or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just the adoption of the technology, it's using it to influence people to try to misrepresent.
Yeah, I mean, and the funny thing is they think they're the first person that's thought of it, and they're like, oh, we use AI. I'm like, oh, I just threw it from my mouth again. But the truth is, like, just underneath it all, there is a kernel of truth and utility there.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that we're always looking for as a VC or as an angel investor is why now?
Yep.
Right? Because there's, as you know, there's so many smart and hungry founders out there that the moment something becomes possible, and it could be technology, it could be a regulatory change, but anything sudden it changes, all of a sudden you got dozens, if not hundreds of entrepreneurs in that space going after similar opportunities, and you end up seeing a lot of decks that are virtually identical except for the logo. And that's not bad.
Yeah.
That means like, great, a door's open and a lot of people are going through it. So that's legit. It is legitimate that AI, or easy to implement AI like we have now, has made things possible that weren't possible 3 years ago. So I don't hate on that. I just find it a little bit amusing where they think it's a magic word that's suddenly going to make me write a check. I'm like, no, it's not how it works.
So what makes you write the check when you see 90 decks looking very similar?
So if I find 90 decks looking similar and the teams are all similar, I won't.
Yeah.
Because it's like going to a horse race where all the horses look good.
Yeah.
I don't know where I'm going to win, right? So I'm looking for everything.
Yeah.
So, and the reason I say that is a startup is a chain. I've used this analogy before. It's a chain. It's not a rope. In a rope, if a couple of the strands fray, the rope will still hold. But in a chain, if one link is broken, like you got nothing, right? You have two chains that do nothing. So I'm really looking for a startup where all the links of the chain are solid, starting from like the problem. Is it a painful, widespread, frequent problem?
Yeah.
All the way through to is your solution novel, to is the market big enough, to you're pricing it right, do you have proof that people will pay this way, what's your traction, et cetera, all the way through. So I'm looking for all those things to be checked. And usually if you're investing at the right stage, or if you, let me rephrase that, depending on the stage you're investing in, you may have kind of different criteria for how strong each link has to be. But at the earliest stage, I'm looking for something that shows me some kind of traction, some kind of proof of product market fit,
Yeah.
and then something about the team that answers the question why rather than who. Like, why is this team, or why are these people going to be the one to make it work versus someone else? I've got different questions as the companies get further along,
Right.
but
Yeah.
those are really what I'm looking for. But don't think that because you have an awesome team, that's a great solution to a very painful problem, but the market's really small, it doesn't do you any good.
Yeah.
Right? All the links have to be solid.
So how did you move from being a founder into becoming an investor?
Oh, it seemed like a good idea at the time. No, I mean, like so many, I'll give you like the standard kind of, this could be me, this could be any one of a dozen or a couple of 100 dozen other like founders turned investors. You do it, you seem to think you know what you're doing, you start angel investing. Truth is, you got no idea what you're doing.
Right.
If the first couple of investments go bad, you're not an investor anymore, they're not on your show. If the first investment or two or three actually do well, for blind luck in my case, then you get hooked, right? It's like you walked into Atlantic City, you put $100 on number 17 on the roulette wheel, it paid off, and you're thinking to yourself, I know, zero skill, but I'm going to bet again.
Yeah.
So I got lucky my first 2 angel investments. First one, I would never invest in that space again. In pharmaceuticals, I know nothing about them.
Yeah.
But I got lucky, so I wanted to do it some more. And I was doubly lucky that I got better at it before my luck ran out, and ultimately ended up joining an accelerator at just the right time.
Yeah. So I want to hear when the luck ran out.
Oh, I have lots of times when luck ran out. Every startup you're at, you're going to have points for your luck ran out.
Yeah.
The thing that separates a successful startup from one that doesn't is like in the unsuccessful ones that killed the business.
Yeah.
You make tons of mistakes, you have tons of bad luck. As long as it doesn't kill the business and you can keep going, like you got a shot.
Yeah. How do you deal with being approached by founders? I would imagine quite often now. Like, how do you manage it?
There's a flip answer and there's a serious answer. So I'll give you the serious answer for a change because I haven't tried that yet in this interview. VCs are in serious danger of becoming dicks because they've got a lot of people come to them and they want their money. And obviously, if you want somebody's money, you treat them nice. And like they get to the point where they're thinking anything out of their mouth is like, you know, God's gift to startups. And the truth is, like, we're fallible too. Some of the early investors are actually not very good at it. It's just hadn't been long enough for them to realize that. Right? I invest in a company, I don't know for 10 years if I made the right decision.
Right.
I mean, I might know in 2 years it was the wrong decision.
Yeah.
But, you know, until 10 years have passed, I don't know. So you got a lot of people out there that are like kind of high on check writing, but really don't know. And they're giving questionable advice at best. But we're in danger of like that kind of attitude. And at the same time, it's kind of depressing a little bit because I'll talk to 100 startups and I'll say no to 99 of them.
Yeah.
If all goes well.
Yeah.
And I've gotten to the point where like I'm telling them like it's not for me. Sometimes they'll push back a little bit and I'll say, listen, Helen, nothing can make me happier than you proving me wrong.
Right.
But this is not my bet. So the main thing I try to do is I try to not be a dick any more than I already am. And I try not to let it get to me. Like what I will invest in doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad investment. It just means it's not for me.
Right.
Okay. And let's be honest, 80% of the time, it is just a bad investment for anybody. But sometimes it's a good investment for other people. It's a different industry. It's not my industry.
Your
a lot of the
New
time
York
it's crap.
brain just came
really
out.
Is. A lot of the time it's crap. But most of the time, well, some of the time it's good, but not for me.
Yeah.
Too early, wrong industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do people know what's right for you?
Well, they could read my fucking LinkedIn profile.
Right.
I would say the first line, like I get these like, oh, I have this like, it's a new Beanie Bop consumer product. I'm like, what part of prop tech and construction tech wasn't clear from the first line of my LinkedIn profile? And by the way, I joke about it. Every other VC, other than generalists, who it's like, okay, they're generalists, so like, what can they say?
Yeah.
Well, they can still be wrong with generalists. It could be the wrong stage, right? You know,
Right.
I'm pre-revenue, and like, no, we only invest in the Series A. But nothing kind of ruins your credibility in reaching out to an investor and pitching them something that's obviously the wrong thing.
Right.
Like I'll cut them a little slack if they come at me with an ed tech startup, because I used to do ed tech. I did ed tech. I mean, it's been almost 10 years. But if you went on like Crunchbase and you're looking for people who invested in ed tech and you're not looking that closely at when they made the investment, you're like, oh, you did 17 ed tech investments. I'm going to go reach out to okay. That gets a polite thank you for reaching out to me. I don't invest in ed tech anymore.
Yeah.
But if you're like, okay, I'm going to pitch you on like ad tech, I'm like, dude, like never did it.
Yeah.
So why me? And to put this in the category of reasonable, non-dicky reasons,
Yeah.
I worry about that startup founder's ability to do sales
100%.
if they're not doing their homework.
Yeah, if they're not qualifying.
Yeah, if they're not doing basic homework like that, they're spraying and praying. And think of it this way, right? Let's give a B2B example, right? Let's say you're out there, you're selling software licenses, and it's a $50,000 software license. So if you're a good salesperson, you're spending an hour plus just researching the company, maybe multiple hours. What do they do? What are their pain points? Which department within this organization would be paying for this software? Who is the person who makes the decision? Great. How do I get in touch with her? Do I have any warm intros to her? Awesome. I'm going to craft the perfect, maybe I don't have a warm intro, but I'm going to reach out to her anyway. I am going to give the perfect crafted email or in-mail on LinkedIn. And within like the first 2 sentences, I'm going to show that I've done all my homework. I know what's important to her. I know what moves the needle for her, because I know I got to get her attention in the first sentence. And hopefully she'll keep reading and, we'll start talking. But then they turn around and they go to me and they're asking me for 10 or even 100 times as much money. And I get a dear investor, like bullshit, generic outreach. The nicest thing I can say is, don't worry, I didn't read it anyway, so you can do it right the next time.
How do you manage it though? Like I'm literally talking about inbox overload.
So I'll give you a couple like technical tips and tricks.
Yeah.
I have a you know what auto text was in Word?
Yeah.
So you could type like 3 or 4 letters and then it would expand it into a paragraph or 2. So I have like some of those things set up, and I have like standard responses that I use.
Yeah.
Right? As many people just ignore it entirely, and sometimes I will ignore it entirely.
Yeah.
But I try to respond to everything. I can only do that if I can type 5 letters and boom, it expands. So I have one which says something like, "Thank you for reaching out to me. I have to admit, I'm a little bit confused. I'm not sure how your investment thesis, how your investment opportunity squares with my thesis. Can you help connect the dots for me?" Which is a very polite, slightly passive-aggressive way to say, can you do your fucking homework and come back? I could be wrong. Occasionally, like 1 in 100 times, there is a real estate angle to it. So I'm polite about it. But most of the time, they're like, oh yeah, you're not the right guy. I'm like, then why did you email me? I want them to start thinking about that. And in case you're wondering, the auto text that triggers that is the word "go away."
Yeah, but it's like, that's very kind.
Yeah, but I tried.
It's also inviting a response back, which
backfires.
yes.
So listen, maybe it was because I spent so many years in an accelerator dealing with companies that were almost but not quite ready. And maybe it's because like I found this out late in life, kind of an affinity to teach.
Yeah.
I'm willing to spend the extra like 20 seconds or so if they respond, and if they respond meaningfully, to respond to them meaningfully. It's like, oh, you're right. I probably shouldn't have reached out to you. And I'm sorry. I'm like, hey, just so you know, like this is the kind of thing that ruins your credibility with investors. So I'll do that. A lot of investors won't. They deal with inbox overload, delete, if it's not for them.
Yeah, I'm overwhelmed by as automation happens, as AI is.
It just gets worse because it's easier for them to spam.
Right.
So
and I'm not even an investor. So, I can't imagine what it would be like to be an investor right now.
It was bad for 10 years already. So like, it's not that much difference. It's like, yeah, I've been in prison for 10 years. The prison rate's not that much better, not that much worse. I mean, okay, the new guy's a little bigger than the old guy, but, I'm used to it.
Yeah.
I did ask before I said, "Hey, can I curse?" And
No,
he said,
this is
"Yes,
good.
that's fine."
This is all good. You're making me laugh. But it's just, I mean, I guess right now I'm thinking about just inbox overload. That seems to be, and just overload in general. And um,
So there are other tools to do that.
yeah,
It depends on how much you're willing to trust them. But there are AI agents that can go in there. They can summarize it. There was one that I tried for. I don't know. I think their free trial was 2 weeks. So I tried it for 2 weeks. It wasn't bad. And what they would do was they would go through it all and they would prioritize what they thought you really wanted to deal with first. And for all of them, they would actually start writing the answer.
yeah,
And they put it like you open it up and there'd be a draft there for you already. And it wasn't bad. I didn't use it because I'm very particular about how I write.
yeah.
But I would say and listen, I wrote a book, so I'm very particular. And no AI was used in the book.
Yeah.
Like I'm particular that way. But there are a lot of people for whom like writing isn't their strong suit. It's not their passion. And the AI generated text is a step up from what they would do, or at least good enough for a quick response.
Yep.
So if that's all right with you, then these tools are getting better. They're getting better. And they also had weird kind of tags. Like they keep throwing like Gmail labels on things. I'm like, it already looks like the Pride Parade here. I can't have any more tags on my emails.
It seems funny, right? It's going back to almost Moltbook. It's like machines talking to machines.
There was a funny cartoon
Yeah.
I saw, and in 2 panels. In panel number 1, there's a guy looking at the show. I was like, AI is great. I just gave it a one sentence description. It expanded it into a full email. And the other one, the guy's like, looking, AI is great. I just got this long email and it condensed it down to 1 sentence.
So it just seems like access and the ability to break through the noise is a problem that we've always faced, right?
Yeah.
But is becoming more and more important.
Yeah, it's becoming harder. So if I were a generalist and I were being pitched by a startup and they were like, well, AI and like automation tools have just increased the amount of email like a quantum level, I'd want to see some data, but it would be plausible. I might argue like, yeah, it's bad, but it was bad before. It's like, if I'm your customer, it's just like, you just raise the temperature from 140 to 141.
Yeah.
But, if you showed me the numbers, like, your average person and your average role in a company from mid-senior level, it could be a legitimate why now for a startup in the space.
Yeah. Speaking of being particular about your language, I do want to plug this, not because
don't let me
we're
stop
just plugging
you.
this, but this is really good.
Yeah, flattery will get you
And
everywhere.
I know most of the stuff in here, but it's an incredible, it's a great read.
Oh, do go on.
And I feel like there's really, I believe your intent is to teach, and I think it's really incredible. Like the way that you approach and take, is it Marcus?
Yeah.
Is the founder? Marcus is the founder,
Yeah.
right? And it's just great. Like it allowed me to look at new things in a new way. So this is called the Entrepreneur's Odyssey.
Yep.
And Andrew wrote this.
I did.
And it's
No
worth
AI.
every penny. It's great, and it's a beautiful book as well. But I was really, really impressed. I was like, yeah, I'll read it. I'm sure it'll be good, but I think it's really much better than good.
So would you like to hear some of the inside baseball on it?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll give you a couple little Easter eggs to it.
Yeah.
So I'm a writer, but I'm not a great writer. Like most of the writing that I do is 500 to 800 word articles that'll get placed in like different publications.
Yeah.
So when I thought about doing a whole book, I'm like, can I write more than 800 words? I don't know. The other thing is like, can I write in a way that not everyone sounds like me? Because it gets kind of boring if all the characters sound exactly the same. So to get around that, for each one of the characters, I have a mental image of somebody in my life.
Yeah.
And I just run it through that person in translation to try to change it to sound like them. So Marcus is, there's actually an entrepreneur when I was doing ed tech.
Yeah.
He had just the right mix of kind of well-reasoned opinions, but loosely held, like willing to look at other alternatives, unflappable. And any time I wanted to write a sentence that came out of Marcus's mouth, I just visualized him saying it. The main investor is Jason. That's actually an homage to one of the OGs of early angel investing in New York, a man named John Asen. who passed a few years ago. Though the tone is a little bit of a mix of him and me.
Yeah.
But that's how I actually got the book to sound like different people.
It's a really good book.
Thank you.
Like, I'll continue to flat it because, I'm like, yeah, I'll read it, whatever. Like, I know this stuff, but really, really good. And I highly recommend it.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to come off as negative, but I'm the kind of guy that I can't read most business books.
Yeah.
I just find them like mind-numbingly boring.
And redundant.
It's a 20-page PowerPoint stretched to a couple of 100 pages.
Yes, this is not this book.
No,
this book is incredible. And the fact that you said you write shorter articles, I mean, it's a great book, but I love the fact that each chapter is bite-sized.
So I use that book in the course I teach, and there's inevitably like 3 or 4 of my students who are like, "Oh, there was too much reading," and I'm like, I assign 2 or 3 chapters, not even every week, and each chapter is like 3 to 8 pages.
Yeah,
and I'm like, I don't think it's too much reading.
No, it's a really quick read. It's a good book. It's a beautiful book.
Thank you.
I am very impressed with it, and I feel lucky to have it on my and not on my bookshelf. I have it here, and you can see I've opened it and started reading it. It won't go on the bookshelf. The bookshelf is where things that I don't read go.
Interesting. I'll tell you one more inside business. I obsessed over that cover.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the people who are watching, certainly the people who are listening, won't see it. It's a picture of a maze, and in front of it, there's a guy with a chainsaw. So it's all verbal puns, like he's hacking his way through the startup maze. It's a novel, quote unquote, guide to startup success because it's written like a novel. Yeah, there are puns and pad jokes in there. I make no apology.
Yeah.
But I actually went into, and this is by if you're an entrepreneur who's doing something in physical product, like you got to think about things that your software partners or compatriots don't have to. So I actually went into Barnes and Noble with one of the guys who was going to help me design the cover. And I went into the business section, and I just stood back about 15 feet away, let my eyes unfocus, and I tried to figure out what colors are missing.
Yeah.
And it turns out, like, money green is not really used in the business section.
Wild.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to use the predominant color is going to be green.
Yeah.
And then I also noticed that all the spines of the book were solid colors with other solid colors on top of it.
Yeah.
So if you notice, the maze motif wraps around the spine of the book and back.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really
and I even,
nice.
And this isn't my idea, it's this guy who helped me out with it, is actually a friend's son who's getting his start, and a very, very sharp kid. We walked over into other sections because I wanted to be the kind of book that people would look at and like, oh, they put it on the wrong shelf.
Yeah.
And they pick it up and they look at it. So we went over into the sci-fi fantasy areas, and I don't know if you know, like on a lot of those books, they're like thicker books, and you have a picture like of the actual character on the spine. I'm like, that's awesome. I want to do that.
Yeah.
But I couldn't do it because I didn't write like a 400-page like
Thank God.
brick.
Yes.
It's not thick enough to put
reading.
like a silhouette of Marcus on it. But that's the kind of thing, like if you're doing physical product, you want to sweat a little bit because you want to zag while other people zig.
Yeah.
You want it to stand out.
Yeah.
Hopefully it looks good in general. It doesn't stand out because, oh my God, that's so ugly. But you want it to, well, there's certain cars who I think they're designed specifically to look ugly, but appealing to a certain niche. But that's the kind of thing, like, it's really, really important with physical product. And it's still important, like your website, your app design, but less so if you're a software founder.
Yeah, speaking of cars, I was just on the Belt Parkway the other day and
The Belt parking lot?
driving next to a green Porsche. And I literally
That's a
said
little
that to
different.
my kid. I said, that green is really interesting because you don't see any cars in that color.
Yeah, and you've seen that. We've gone through. We're going to go really far afield with this.
Yeah.
We've gone through a 360 here. So if you go back and you see pictures of cars from like the 50s, there are tons of colors.
Yeah.
And then somewhere in the 80s and 90s, we coalesced on like
Silver.
white, gray, black, silver, and red,
Gold. Oh,
with the
okay.
occasional like dark blue. And then like if you got like a midnight blue, like that was like different.
Yeah.
And now we seem to be back. Like matte colors are in. Like that was, who saw that coming?
Yeah.
You see like burnt senna. By the way, at most men, we have like 6 colors. Like there's red, green, blue, yellow, black, white.
Yeah.
But like, there's a lot of different variations out there. So we're kind of in a resurgence of like more interesting car colors.
Yes. And more interesting book colors for more.
Well, I don't know. I only know mine.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
So when you went from angel investing to working at the accelerator, was that Dreamit?
Yeah.
What was that like? Being part, were
It
you
was
starting an accelerator or you were joining an
no, I was
accelerator?
joining an accelerator. They were around since 2008, third oldest accelerator in the world. When
Yeah.
I joined, they were still one of the top 5 or 10 programs. Uh, I candidly underestimated the magnitude of the change.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if they knew I underestimated the magnitude of the change. I'll explain what I mean by that. So if you're an angel investor and you're getting 2 or 3 like interesting startups a month,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe you invest, maybe you don't invest that month, like you're feeling pretty good. I got good deal flow. I'm looking at 2 or 3 really good startups every month, and I'll pull the trigger maybe every 2 or 3 months, maybe. Like that's great.
Yeah.
So okay, then like I get the job at Dreamit. Talk about how if you want or not. And they're like, great, you're going to start a new program in 3 months. You need 12 startups. A lot of them are going to be crap, especially at the earliest stage. I mean, this is like pre-revenue, so there's a lot of chafe with that wheat. So you should probably aim to get 1,000 or more applications to pick 12.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, you have 3 months, but you kind of have to have them locked in a month before. So you have 2 months. So I went from being, I only need 2 or 3 good startups a month to I needed 1,000 startups and I need to winnow them down to about 50 that I was willing to interview, all of that in 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And then I had another 2 weeks or so to do the interviews and pick the 12 plus a few alternates. So I wasn't really prepared or clued in on the magnitude of the change from like hobbyist to like hardcore professional.
Yeah. Under someone else's umbrella as well. Like, I don't know if that was a lot of oversight or not, but I know that even going from being a solo practitioner in my work to working with a co-founder, the expectations of my time are different.
Yeah. So there's actually a lot to unpack there. So we'll start with, I was fortunate that I wasn't starting from zero. Dreamit had a great brand. I could just make the announcement and I get, a decent number of startups just coming in because they've been waiting for the next application to open.
Yeah.
So that was helpful. I've been starting from scratch, never would have gotten 1,000 applications in that period of time. But I also had to work and I had to go out there. I mean, this is pre-seed. It's not like I can go on PitchBook and look for startups that have already raised their seed round. They can raise a Series A.
Yeah.
This was primary demand general. Not using that word right, but this is going into the grassroots, and I go into I do events at co-working spaces. I would work with universities to see what their student entrepreneurs are coming up. By the way, student entrepreneurs, the myth is wrong. By and large, bad sources of entrepreneurs because they don't have any life experience to come up with really painful problems. But I was doing a lot of that to just go to the earliest.
Yeah.
And I was using social media, and back then Twitter was pretty effective for me as a way to generate the applications. And all of that changed again a couple of years later when we decided to take Dreamit a little later stage. So I went from an angel to an accelerator. Wow, totally different. Spent a couple of years, 2 years, finally getting that down. And I'm like, okay, I got that down. Let's change it entirely.
Yeah. Did it move to Series A or seed?
Yeah, so we went to post-revenue, usually post-seed.
Yeah.
Sometimes there might be a large seed.
Yeah.
And then the companies would be expected to be raising a seed extension or a Series A, depending on how far along they are. Now, the hardest part there was we couldn't use the A word. Because if I said the word accelerator, all of the startups that we wanted to talk to were like, yeah, I'm beyond that stage.
Not interested.
Right? They stopped thinking because they're like, yeah, that's not for me. Because founders, just like investors, just like you, just like most people in this world, are time-starved and attention overloaded. So the moment you're like, oh, yeah, that's not for me, you block it out defensively. And it's a smart move because there's a lot of crap out there. So we needed to punch through that.
Yeah.
So we stopped using the word accelerator. We use the word scale-up program. We'd sometimes say we're the only program that's right for companies that are beyond the accelerator stage. They didn't know what that meant, but they're just wait, I'm beyond the accelerator stage. Maybe I'll devote another 20 seconds to listening to you.
Yeah.
But that's the hardest thing. The hardest thing for a lot of startups, and my first startup as well, is what is that 8 to 10 second phrase that gets your potential customer willing to open their mind up enough to listen to 20 or 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And then you use that to pry them open for another couple of minutes. Come over, I'll show you a demo, and so on and so forth. And it's the same challenge a startup faces with the entrepreneurs. That's why you have an elevator pitch.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. When I was evaluating Dreamit for one of my companies that now has a Series A and we're looking at the Series B, they were doing sales sprints as part of one of their.
Yeah, we called them customer sprints and investor sprints.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, so this would be probably sometime between 2017 and 2020, 2021. What kind of startup was it?
It's a physical security enterprise SaaS.
Got it. So Dreamit actually still does security.
Yeah.
So
Great clients, amazing clients, but
yes,
Dreamit wasn't interested. It was during 2022, August of 2022. Nobody was writing checks, and
listen, I know Mel.
it didn't work out.
I know it was tough.
Yeah.
The difference was when we went to that later stage, everything that we did had to change.
Yeah.
Right. So there's kind of an interesting backstory to it, but sometimes what you find, and again, startup, accelerator, VC fund, you're in a crowded lane, and you're trying to like jockey past the other cars in that lane. Not quite as bad as the Belt Parkway. At least it's heavy but moving, so it's possible. But sorry, for people outside of the New York City area, like they have no idea what I'm talking about. The Belt Parkway is on Long Island. I have never been on the Belt Parkway and moved more than stop and go. And like I am not young, right? But we digress. So, we have these, we have this like crowded lane, and we're all used to fighting for like pole position in that crowded lane. And sometimes there is an open lane right next to you. You're so used to doing it this way, you don't see it. And it took a new CEO who challenged us like, I want to be number one. I don't want to be top 5. If we can't get to number 1 doing what we're doing, I want to do something different.
Yeah.
And that's why we moved later stage.
Yeah. It's an impressive group.
Yeah. Listen, I would love to take credit for it, but Avi Savar was the CEO of Dreamit at the time. He was the one that saw it.
Let me see. I'm just taking a look at our questions. So talk to me now. Are you pre-seed, seed?
So now I'm generally in the same space I was when I was at Dreamit. I like companies that are post-revenue. I might look at the seed, but I prefer it if it's like, a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
But here's the caveat. Like I'm doing like 5 different things right now. So I'm not at Dreamit anymore. I haven't been for many years.
Right.
I have been working with another fund called Second Century Ventures, also in the prop tech, construction tech related industries. They were actually seeded by the National Association of Realtors. So that tells you where they're coming from. And they ran, and they still do run, a scale-up program similar in many ways to what we built at Dreamit. So it was very simpatico to join them. I do about a day a week with them, building other platforms. We talked in the intro, I do a corporate innovation work. This was a platform I built for them for other real estate organizations to tap directly into the innovation that's in the startup world. So when I look for companies for them, it's a similar strike zone as what I was used to. And if I have my Second Century hat on, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Now, in my own SPVs, and for the audience who's not familiar, that's a special purpose vehicle. Just think of it as a fund for one company and one company only. Those are like pickup games. So they're usually, the way I got started with it, as I had some Dreamit companies that were raising up rounds, and Dreamit was no longer doing my sector anymore. And I was the face of Dreamit to them anyway when I was there, because I was the one that worked with them. So one of the companies turned around and said, well, Dreamit's not doing. I got about 180,000 left in the round. Do you want it? And I was about to say, because I'd said this for many, many years, I don't invest in my portfolio companies through Dreamit because I don't want to send a negative signal that I invested in this one and not that one.
Yeah.
I love all my children equally, but she gets an allowance and he doesn't. Then I realized I'm not at Dreamit anymore, so I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
I said, Jan, give me a minute. All right, let me see. So I wasn't going to take the whole 180 myself. I'm not there yet. So I talked to a couple of my friends, and this was 2021, end of 2021. PropTech is really hot. They're like, oh, that sounds great. I'm in. Before I knew it, I had 180 to play with. So I set up an SPV through AngelList. It was easy peasy, and we did the first investment. And then I'm like, damn, I have 31 companies I invested in at Dreamit in this space alone.
Yeah.
And like 9 or 10 of them are gone. But, and another, 9 or 10 of them are sideways. We'll see what happens. But I had 10 of them, maybe a little bit more, that are doing really well and likely to raise up rounds.
Yeah.
So most of the companies I've done SPVs in are in that boat. So I've done 7 of them. 6 of them were former Dreamit companies. One is actually a second century venture company, so it's kind of the exception that proves the rule. And I'm in the process, knock wood, of doing my 8th in a second century ventures company that makes, of all things, robots that clean trash chutes in buildings.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah. It's the kind of thing my kids think is like the most boring thing ever. I think it's cool.
I think I just heard about that, and I don't know if it's the company that you're talking about or if there's competitors in that space, but it sounds amazing. Really, really good. So with so the fund that you are working with Second
Century Ventures.
Second Century Ventures, what milestones do companies need to be hitting before they?
So it depends on the region. So they run 8 programs around the world. There's 2 of them in the U.S., one for residentially focused startups, meaning they want to tap into the residential real estate market, others into the commercial real estate market. They have a program in Canada. That's 3. They have a program in the UK, which covers Europe. They have a program in Mexico that covers all of LATAM. They've got a program in Australia that covers most of the Pacific Rim. They've got a program in Israel, which covers Israel. And they've got Reach MENA, Middle East and North Africa, which covers everywhere else there except Israel.
Yeah.
So the Israeli startups just went to Dubai last week as part of PropTech Connect, and some of the Israeli companies won, including the robot one. They won an award, so it was very nice. So if you are in any of those regions, you would start with these programs. They're called Reach. And depending on what region you're in, they're looking for slightly different things. But let's say we're talking U.S., generally post-seed, some revenue. You're going to raise an A, maybe a B. I've even seen them take companies in that were on the verge of raising a Series C.
Okay.
So, but if you're seed and you've got something, apply.
Yeah.
Because they do like to see the companies over time.
Yeah.
So getting a no now doesn't mean you will get a no in 6 months or a year. In fact, I think somewhere about a third of the companies that have been accepted into Reach programs have applied previously.
Yeah, that's cool. It just helps to give a target so that people who don't have revenue aren't reaching out to you.
Yeah, if you're on a cocktail napkin, okay, don't apply. If you're products out there and you've got an unpaid pilot or 2, you might be a little bit early, but apply. They might see something in you and take you early.
Yeah.
Or they might be like, hey, really nice, but come back in 6 months or a year.
Do you think it's appropriate for, let's say, a company with 4 to 5 million in revenue ARR, or is that?
Yeah. So I've seen companies with more revenue come in. So the nature of the program and the offer is such that it's a de minimis amount of money coming in on a safe.
Yeah.
And depending on the region, the terms are slightly different, but there's usually a pretty generous cap and discount. And then on top of it, there's some warrants into it. And then the way the investment usually works is the initial investment is that Reach program. And then when they actually get to the next round and the warrants convert, not the warrants, sorry, the safe converts, then Second Century, which is the parent fund, has the right to exercise the pro rata into that round.
Yeah, that's cool. And then with your own SPVs, let's talk about how that works.
Sure.
So you see a company that you're interested in, or one of your companies come back and says, we're doing an up round. We got 180,000. What's that process like? Are you just calling? You're just dialing?
Yeah, it's super informal on my end. So I do use AngelList as the back end. Now, AngelList has a feature where you can put it out on the platform and people can, I call them walk in.
Yeah.
I know some people who have done fantastic that way. They were doing a little bit earlier. I guess maybe there's some novelty to it. I haven't had any walk-ins that were meaningful. I had a couple of people $1,000, $2,000 into it.
Yeah.
If I'm doing what's more likely to be somewhere between $250,000 and $450,000 into a $5 or $10 million round, it's not moving the needle for me.
Yeah.
So it's usually people I know, people who've known me for many years, and they're at a point where they love it. They love the fact that I've known the company for an extended period of time. Even though that's the trash chute company, it tells you what they do. So why not? Though every time I use speech to text, it goes RoboShoot SHOOT, and I'm like, come on. Figure it out already. But, even them, they actually went through Reach Israel over a year ago.
Yeah.
So I've been working with them on and off for an extended period of time. So my friends, my acquaintances who come in on me, they like the fact that I'm not going out there, met a company 2 months ago, falling in love,
Yeah.
and like just taking other people's money to do it.
Yep.
There are companies that I've worked with for an extended period of time. I know the founders very well, like a year well, or 5 years well, not like 3 months well, before I'm asking anybody for, to put their money, in my mouth. Does that make sense? I don't know.
I don't know. That doesn't sound sanitary.
They're putting their money where my mouth is, whatever it is. I'm not asking them to give me any of their money alongside mine to come in until, that's the bar I set. I could do a lot more if I were doing it just, companies that I liked out of my deal flow. But this is what I do for my SPVs.
Do you structure it with any kind of carry or any kind of management fee?
Yeah. Oh, now we're going to go deep. Awesome. Okay.
I'm curious.
So happy to do it. So I'll roll it back because I don't know your audience, how sophisticated they are, but most VC funds, when they invest, their investors are giving them money, and their investors will pay the VC fund usually two things. One is management fee, so it's a certain amount each month just to keep the lights on in the VC, usually 2 or 2.5% of the commitment, the amount of money that they say they're going to invest through the fund. Mm-hmm. And the other one is called carried interest. So I know I'm telling you, this. This is for everyone else, which means basically 20% of the winnings go to the fund. Mm-hmm. Right. So if a company
after returning the money,
exactly. Yeah. So I was about to give you the example. You have it spot on. If we invest at a $10 million valuation, and then the company sells for $100 million, then the first $10 million go back to the investors as is, and we only get 20% of the $90 million, on top of that. Mm-hmm. So the way I structure my SPVs, because I don't want it to be a weird incentive if I ever do a fund that they're like, yeah, I love you, but I want to keep going in the SPVs,
right,
is a same 20% carry that I would charge for a fund, mm-hmm. I charge for the SPVs. Yep. The main difference, and there's subtle, the main difference is in a fund, that 20% carry, that 1x liquidation hurdle is across your entire fund. Mm-hmm. So if I have one win and one loss, I got to wait until I'm past that $10 million or whatever initial fund size before I get anything. Yeah. When you're doing SPVs, it's deal by deal. Mm-hmm. So on the one hand, it's more of a pain in the butt. I don't have committed capital. I've got to go pass the hat around each time. Yeah. On the other hand, if I have a zero, it's a zero. It doesn't make it harder for the others to return. Right. I don't have any zeros yet.
Yeah. I appreciate you going deep into that.
No problem. You asked.
I like to know.
And you can always cut it out on the editing room floor if you think, it's boring.
No, I think it's great. I think it's great. So how do you evaluate founders, and other than people reaching out to you randomly, not paying attention to what you invest in, what are some red flags?
Well, if I do get to a one-on-one with a founder, mm-hmm. There are two extremes that are, you're out. One is the weather vane. Whatever someone tells them, whoever the last person was they spoke to, that's a great idea, I'm going to do that. Mm-hmm. Or, oh, no, I'm going to do that. Yep. The other example and this is a little bit more common, they're like, yeah, I'm going to go do it my way. Right? Regardless of what you tell them, it's like, yeah, no, but really, we have to do this. So one is stuck in, rusted in one position. The other is a weather vane. Yeah. And I like I referred to the inspiration for the character in the book from Marcus. I like founders who have well-reasoned but loosely held opinions. Yeah. So if you tell a founder, listen, I really think your B2B focus is wrong. You should go B2C. Mm-hmm. The correct response from a founder's part is well, that's really interesting. Can you tell me your thought process behind it? Because I want to understand why you're doing it. Yeah. Why you're saying that. And if you're like, yeah, I just like it better. I'm like, okay, that's very nice. Thank you very much. And then they ignore you, which they should because you haven't shown them your work. A lot of people, it's just passing ideas, but they may come back and say, or you may come back and say, well, listen, I worked with about 10 companies that are in B2B model for this. The cost of customer acquisition and the time it takes them to make that sale has killed almost all of them. Mm-hmm. You, on the other hand, have a product that could be sold to individuals why don't you try something that the other 10 people aren't trying because it's not working for them?
Yeah.
So, and of course, I made all this up on the spot, but the idea is the founder now has the data. You've shown your work.
Yeah.
And the founder will be like, well, I didn't know that there were 10 companies. I knew there were 10 companies, but I didn't know it was an 18-month sales cycle. That's brutal.
Yeah.
I didn't know they're on the verge of going down because it's taking too long. Maybe she has something there.
Yeah. Very interesting, because I often tell my founders to listen to the feedback and then put it away and keep, while they're actively raising, listen to the feedback, file it, continue with your raise, and then evaluate. And if you hear it from enough people or from the right source, you can modify.
Yeah. I would disagree a little bit, because if somebody comes back to you and it's very reasonable, feedback, if you're filing away to the end, you've just burnt the next 20 potential, investors before you've evaluated it. I will say that, if it's you're getting feedback, it's on the edge, then you wait and see what the predominance of it is. Though I do give them one rule of thumb here. People are like, oh, should I put this in my deck? Should I not put this in my deck? I say, if half the people you speak to ask the question, it's a slide in your deck.
Yeah.
If between 20 and 50% ask about it, it's a slide in your appendix. Yeah. If less than 20%, just have that slide ready and email them to them later.
Yeah, I like that. And
you
I thought
probably,
that was great advice.
You get it, right? Because if you put stuff in the deck that they don't think to ask about, you may actually be asking them to think about reasons to not invest.
Yeah.
So, you don't want to go and create problems.
Yeah.
But you do want to proactively address anything that they would say no of. And if half the people would say no if they didn't have the data, be proactive about it. And if enough of them care, put it in the appendix, and you can always jump to it in the pitch.
Yeah. I probably am overcorrecting because I've seen too many weather vanes.
Yeah. There's a lot like that.
And I've seen a lot of founders spin out after getting feedback from one investor and losing a month revising their deck.
Yeah. You're going to get tons of different conflicting advice from investors. Just accept that.
Yeah.
If the advice is simply, that's how I like it, well, guess what? The next guy you're talking to likes it differently.
Right.
So just, whatever. It's listen, I'm getting conflicting advice about it. Is there anything in the deck, any information that's missing?
Right.
Or that's how you get past the, I want you to present it this way. It's no, it's all there. I just think it would be easier to do it that way. Okay. Thank you very much. I'm getting data. If it turns out that the majority of people are they want it that way, I'll change it. I just want to make sure that you have the information that you needed. Yeah. Very polite way to say, I'm not making any changes yet.
Yeah. So, we've just covered some of the points that are very well presented in here in the story form, which again, part of the reason why I'm raving about it is because I agree with the direction that you have in there and the fact, hey, these are the things that need to go in a deck, but depending on who you are, you're going to have these ordered in different ways. Depending on, if you want to start out hot out of the gate and you've got good traction, you put that up front. If your team's a star team and you multiple exits, you put that up front. But otherwise, it belongs someplace else, because every startup's different and every situation is
every story is different.
No, I love that. So, again, the book is just really very, very much enjoy it.
Let's try something different, because you're embarrassing me every time you say it's nice. That's not
But
true.
you're not blushing.
I can never get embarrassed. You can keep going. Was there anything that, okay, I'm going to shoot myself in the foot here. Was there anything in the book where you read that rang untrue, or that was I don't agree with that?
All right. So the ending, where he is meeting with an investor, and
don't give away the last line of the book, though.
But there are two things that I felt.
Sure, go right ahead. I wouldn't have asked if I didn't want to hear.
I didn't feel that's a realistic portrayal. One, the fact that Jason is spending so much time with this founder, even prior to writing a check to investing.
Sure. So that's
I was
true.
that was amazing.
Now, it works sort of because he's an angel investor. Right. So what I think you're getting to is VCs cannot invest, lowercase I, a lot of time in a startup until they're sure that it's going to be one of theirs. And even once they've made that investment, it's often great, we'll talk in 3 months.
Yeah.
Right. And that's actually rational. If we've chosen the right team, we should be there to help. but especially after that initial period of time, I mean, we shouldn't have to be hovering over their shoulder.
Yeah.
Angel investors and accelerators, we have the potential, and in the case of an accelerator, the incentive to be more involved even when the cake is half baked, right? Because we can do that. And like Jason, he's investing his own money.
Yeah.
Right. He clearly doesn't have another day job right? Some angel investors have a day job.
Yes.
But if you're like, visualize a guy in his late 50s, early 60s, or in the case of John Asen, he was in his 70s at that point. Like, there's nothing else he's doing.
Right.
So if he finds if he finds an entrepreneur that he really clicks with, an idea that really feels that it has potential, angel investors will dive in.
Yeah.
So it's unrealistic for you to expect that to happen to you, because that happens very rarely. But it's not an unheard of dynamic.
Yeah.
Plus, I needed there to be someone more involved for the book to work. So.
Yeah, no, it's really good. But I just felt he was incredibly involved for someone who's not actually investing.
It is atypical, and you can call it poetic license.
Yes. And then I just felt towards the end that some of the things that came up at the end, I don't want to get the end anyway, would have been covered earlier. That's all.
Yeah. So there's the last third of the book is all about the fundraising process. I had some feedback. So part of the reason I started teaching was the dean of this particular school was the author of a couple of very well-written books about the startup world. A guy named Noam Wasserman. He wrote The Founder's Dilemmas.
Yeah.
I met him by chance. I'm like, oh, I've read that book. That actually didn't suck. I didn't say it that way to him. And I was trying to get an intro to his publisher.
Yeah.
But Noam's like smooth. And you wouldn't know it by looking at him because he doesn't look smooth. So it's even doubly smooth.
Yeah.
So I went in there trying to get an intro to his publisher. And 5 minutes later, I had agreed to teach a course at his school because if my book could also be a textbook for entrepreneurship, I should teach and get the drafts in front of students and get their feedback.
Ah, there you go.
Which was absolutely correct. And like he wrote me in. So some of the feedback I get now is those last couple of chapters are a bit rushed because there's a lot coming at you one after the other. So the other thing to remember is that the fundraising process is from the moment you're like, quote unquote, actually actively fundraising to when you raise, it could be 3 to 6 months. So bear in mind that like you're getting like snippets of time along that 3 to 6 month process.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's jump. We're going to move away from the book, even though I love it.
If we must, what else can we talk about?
I'd like to talk about you.
Okay.
And about founders.
Okay, we'll talk about founders.
All right, but
I'll talk about me too. It's just like too ego affirming.
Well, then you're in the wrong place.
Oh, okay. Whatever. I'll suck it up. I'll suffer.
Right. So, what's the hardest lesson that you've learned the hard way that you want to tell us?
No, it's fine. Listen, I have 3 teenage girls, so like I have a high tolerance for pain.
Yeah.
I mean, different times in my career, I've learned different things that have been humbling or helpful or both in different ways. So, for my first startup, I was coming out of I had been a consultant for 4 years, and then part of why I was hired by Kaplan Test Rep to like kind of take their product online was they wanted someone who had that kind of consulting approach to it, could deal with a large company, but also could like, figure out this whole interwebs thing. No, this was like 1999, all right? Man, I have any ideas. Like, here's a CD-ROM and here's like a classroom. We need something in between, and so we'll figure that out.
HTTP, what?
Yeah. Wait, which way does the slash go? Then AOL keywords. Like, that's like, who knows? Anyway, if those are like, what's an AOL keyword? Like, yeah, don't worry about it. So, I came at it with kind of a bit of a consultant's attitude. So I'm there and I kind of bumping heads with one of our sales guys because every time he did a deal, it was different. Like this guy got priced at like $9.95 a camper. This was $9.98 a camper. This was $10 a camper. I'm like, Ed, like, what's the big difference? Just do them all the same. Like now I have like these 12 different variations on what's essentially the same deal. And like, I can't look at the numbers and like they're weird and they're not even numbers. And, we need to rationalize it. And like, we're really bumping heads. And the CEO pulls me into his office, like, listen, you don't get it, right? We're early. We just need to say yes, right? We need to say yes to the client. If they want 998, we just say yes because A, we need the money, and B, we need to learn from them. We need to have enough customers that we understand what the market really wants. So we're just going to say yes to them. The spreadsheets will look ugly. We'll just suck it up. And then in 2 or 3 years, when we have enough customers that we know what they want, you know what? $9.98, $10, no one cares. They probably don't care either that much, especially after 2 years of having great service and like they can't turn it off because their customers are going to be addicted to it anyway. Then you can rationalize it all you want. And it was right. Right? I kind of needed that, that little bit of a face slap or, water thrown in my face.
Yeah.
Well, super hard. I bounced back pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But that was one. The other thing is fast forward a couple of years to I finally have an exit from the company. And I kind of wake up. I'm like, well, now what do I do? Right? It wasn't such an exit that I could never work again.
Yeah.
It was a nice exit. It helped me upgrade, to a larger apartment. But I needed to do more stuff. And the problem was that I had been so heads down focused on my startup that I hadn't been out there in the startup world. And when I went in 2000, like there was no really startup community. By 2008, it was a very healthy, active startup community, more VCs and all that. And I wasn't that well known because I just wasn't out there. So it occurred to me, I'm like, oh, I really should have been building my network the entire way along. But certainly in the last year or two, I should have been investing in those connections. So it actually, I lucked onto a job. I'm not so lucky if you know the job, but I managed to get a job right away. And it was good to have a salary because it was 2009.
Yeah.
The world was kind of imploding there. First it was 2001, then it was like the big meltdown in 2008, 2009. Yeah, my timing is awesome. But it was a difficult job in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I just needed to build my personal brand more so that going forward, when I was ready to jump from one lily pad, there would be another one waiting for me. And that's something that I learned the hard way.
That's a really good lesson.
Yeah.
We're going to pull that as a clip.
Yeah. Learn from other people's mistakes. So learn from my mistake. Don't do it yourself.
Yeah. I think, just heads down, working hard. It can be a chapter, but I don't think that that's really the way that you move forward.
I also tell people, I'm like, so are you fundraising right now? Like, no. I'm like, wrong. You're always fundraising. The difference between actively fundraising and everything else is you go from spending just 10 to 20% of your time talking to investors, updating them, meeting new investors, to spending 80% of your time talking to them and actively asking them for money. But you're always fundraising, and I feel you should always be networking the same way. Yeah. You should always be purposely building your network and your personal brand because you never know.
Yeah, and I mean, at some point it becomes enjoyable, networking.
Yeah.
And, I think I was just interviewing a founder before I met with you today, and, you don't have to network or enter into partnerships or take money from people that you don't like. Like, you can actually just hunt for the people that you
Well, it depends.
from.
If you have multiple term sheets,
Yes.
you have that luxury. We talk about that in the book.
Yes.
If you've only got one term sheet, it's like you have oxygen or no oxygen.
Oof.
So
You have
but the
oxygen or
goal-
you have toxic oxygen.
Well, you know what?
Yeah.
At some point, it's like eat the poison because at least you won't starve. It's not a great place to be in.
Yeah.
But we talk about it because if you're not running a process and you're not running an active process, and it's not a sprint, it can't be a marathon. I'm going to talk to I'll send 10 emails today and 10 emails tomorrow. No, it doesn't do you any good to have 3 potential investors who are interested in investing if they're not interested at the same time.
Right.
Because this guy will lose interest before that term sheet comes in. And you can't play them off each other.
100%.
So you've got to have interest. You want to have options. And the only way you get assholes like me to move fast is I fear I'm going to lose the deal.
Yeah.
FOMO is the only thing that gets investors to move fast. Otherwise, let's watch you for a little bit longer. I'm just going to get more data.
The deal gets more exciting the more people are interested.
I'm exciting, but then I'm like, oh, and I don't want to lose this one. So yeah. FOMO closes deals.
I love that. That's what we operate on, but it's not always, sometimes it's like herding cats.
It is. And the only way herding cats works is if you're like doing it all at the same time. You wait too long, they just wander off in their own directions.
Yep, absolutely. In this current environment, how do you think entrepreneurs should think about valuation?
Okay, I'll just answer this straight. I was going to say you don't. But the truth is that's also the straight up and down answer. So you as a founder have about zero leverage in setting your own valuation. Sorry, and I round up to zero. Now the exception is you're like the fourth member of Google, or you're like the fifth person at OpenAI and you're leaving and you can leave and you're doing something else. So then like you're a rare commodity.
Yeah.
But for the garden variety, great entrepreneur. I'm not talking about the mediocre entrepreneurs because they're not getting funded anyway. Your garden variety, great team. You don't have any leverage in this. Right? You're asking for the money. The guy on the other side of the table says no 99 times every time they say yes. They may be a dick. Just get used to that idea. But you have no leverage. So the idea that you're going to come in there and negotiate, no, I want a higher valuation. I'm like, that's cute. And why should I give that to you? I won't say it that way, but that's what I'm thinking. The only way you get your valuation up is by having a competing term sheet. And it's the right thing to do anyway. And it's not just valuation. There are other terms that can be even more painful or more meaningful in it. Liquidation preferences, governance rights. Like you got to look at all of that. But the only way you have any leverage to get rid of that stuff is if I'm afraid that I'm going to lose the deal because my term sheet wasn't rich enough or was too complicated or too much hair on it.
Right.
So the right way to think about valuation is your valuation will be what the market assigns it if you play your cards right.
Right.
You will get less than that if you don't run a good process.
Do you know where the term hair on it came from? I have no idea.
It's got to be a cat reference. I don't know. I actually don't know. If only we had a device in our pocket that we could ask things to, and instantly it would tell us. That would be a great startup.
Even. What mistakes do you see founders making repeatedly in the fundraising process?
Cold emails, like the idea they can spray and pray their way. We talked about that.
Yeah.
I see that all the time. Not turning it into a sprint, thinking like, they'll spread it out over a period of time. No, it's got to be all at once because you want all your pots of water to start boiling at the same time.
Yeah.
Crappy decks. Right? There's a lot of that. And sometimes it's bad advice that they've gotten.
Yeah.
Like I have a whole separate rant, which we can reserve 4 minutes for if you want, about how the guy who came up with Tam, Sam, Som ought to be lined up against the wall and shot, and not a clean shot. It should be a gut shot, and they should suffer. But there's a lot of bad advice out there.
Yeah.
About like the decks, bad misunderstanding like the purpose of an elevator pitch, a pitch deck, what that process is. It's a sales funnel, just like sales. Yeah. And each step is designed to get you further down into the process, hopefully until the money falls out to the bottom of the funnel. But not understanding that process can lead to a lot of mistakes. And then also dropping the ball at the 10-yard line. Yeah. Because Super Bowl was yesterday, so I have to use a football reference.
Tell me more about that.
A lot of people think, I got a term sheet. That's awesome. Now I can coast. Like, no. Right? It's not over until the money is in the bank. Yeah. And I'm not exaggerating. Yeah. So you got the term sheet. You're going to due diligence, right? You also have to drive. You have to be ready. The moment they say, here's the term sheet, like, there's my data room. By the way, I called my lawyer yesterday. They're on vacation right now, but they'll be back next week. And by the way, the reason you do that is to buy yourself an extra week or two so you can get the other investors who are on the fence to give you a term sheet too. But you got to be ready to go. You got to understand the process. You got to shepherd it through. For the other investors that you're hoping to bring into the bidding, you got to have that like, hey, listen, I got some good news. I got a term sheet. Now, they're okay. I'd really rather work with you because you can add, I think, fill in the blank, whatever you need to do to stroke their ego. I mean, you're an industry expert. You know the industry better. Or, you did 2 startups before. I really connect, and they didn't do any startups before. or your fund has a better reputation, or just we vibe more, whatever it is. But I got a 2-week deadline on the term sheet. I got to make a decision soon. So you tell me if you're interested, what do I need to get to you so you can make a decision in that time?
Yeah.
So that, that's the nice way of saying, are you going to fucking write me a term sheet or not?
Right.
And if you don't, I'm gone. So FOMO, but you have to be smooth about that. But not understanding that process and not staying on top of the ball through that last section and playing the cards that you have and try to play the investors off each other, getting to the signed term sheet, and then finding the other investors to round out the round if you need that. A lot of deals fall apart at that stage, and a lot of founders aren't aware that that can even happen.
Yeah. When people say it's not right to shop a term sheet, are they talking about actually sharing the terms that you've gotten on that term sheet? Because I think it's fair game to call up people and saying, hey, I got a term sheet and you're
So
better. And
it depends what you do, and you're going to get different advice from different people. And, listen, I'm sorry, they're wrong. I don't know what they're saying. So there's two different, very distinct eras in time. One is I have a term sheet, I haven't signed it.
right.
And the other is I've signed the term sheet.
Yeah.
So after you've signed the term sheet,
Yeah.
you can tell everybody everything about it, but that's your lead investor. You're not shopping around for a lead anymore. That's
Right.
settled. You're only talking to people who might want to participate in the round. Maybe co-lead, right? You can do that, but you're not going to someone else and say, hey, they gave me a 15 million pre-money. Can you give me 16?
Right.
That's done.
Right.
Once you sign the term sheet, you don't do that anymore. It's contractually forbidden, and it's also a dick move. And people remember. Before that, in that golden window between I have no term sheet and I have a term sheet I haven't signed yet, that's where you can shop things around if you're smooth about it.
Right.
So there's a couple of things you need to know. We know each other. It's a small world in the VC world. We either know each other already, we may have co-invested, especially if we're in the same industry vertical, or we're at most 1 degree away. When everyone tells me somebody, how have you met so-and-so? I'm like, not yet. And I look at them. I kid you not, over 100 mutual connections with them. And I am very, very reluctant to add anyone on LinkedIn because I only add people I know because I only use them for warm intros.
Right.
So I'm not talking about, I have 100 connections.
That's
I don't know
amazing.
80 of them.
Yeah.
I mean, I legit have that many connections if there's someone in VC who I don't know yet.
Right.
So understand that how you play it off is going to get back to the lead investor, or they're going to reach out to the other term sheet and collude or cooperate in one way, shape, or form if you let them.
Right.
So if you're talking to, it's like, hey, I got the term sheet, good news, but I like you better, right? You're playing that game.
Yeah.
Inevitably, the other VC will say, oh, who's leading it? And you don't tell them.
Never.
You never tell them that, because then they can call them up, hey, what terms should we co-lead this?
Yeah.
And you want it to be a bid.
Yeah.
So you need to be smooth about it and say I'm under NDA. I can't tell you. I can tell you though that they're a generalist. They're not an industry specialist, right? Or I can tell you they're a smaller fund. They don't have the power that you have. Whatever it is that makes the other party feel better about it, but still they can't figure out who it is.
Yeah.
That's what you can tell them. And then you have to decide, do you tell them what the evaluation is that they need to beat, or do you let them bid first? That goes into general advice about negotiating.
Yeah.
There are some people I never put the first number on the table because I want to see how high you'll go.
Yeah.
Others I'm going to put a high number on the table to anchor it, and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
That's legit. You're going to get different advice, and it may play into what your negotiating style is.
Yeah.
I lean towards not.
Yeah.
I prefer to see what someone else comes in. I can always go back to them. It's I really would like to work with you, but I got to be honest, the other guys aren't asking for full ratchet anti-dilution protection.
Yeah.
And the valuation's a little higher.
Yeah.
I can always go back and say that, but I can't go back and say oh, I should have asked for more.
Yeah.
So I lean that way. Other people have different opinions, legitimate in this case, about the negotiation. But the one thing you want to be do not, big red lines, underscore, do not say who the investor is until you sign the term sheet, because then the whole purpose is defeated.
Yeah, I think that's really important.
Did I stress that enough?
I think we did. That's definitely
Okay,
going to be
good.
a clip for sure. Let's see. Do you have any advice for founders who are struggling to get investor interest?
I mean, the entire last third of the book.
Yeah.
There are a couple of reasons why you may be struggling to get investor interest. Number one, there is the possibility that your startup sucks.
Yeah.
Right? That should be the diagnosis of exclusion.
Yeah.
Right? At the end of the day, if you've done everything right and no one's interested, it might not be them, it might be you. But until then, there's a lot of things that might be unrelated to the quality of the startup. You may be talking to the wrong people, right? Have you done your due diligence or at least your pre-qualifications on the people that you're reaching out to? If you're fishing in the wrong pond, it's not shocking that you're not catching fish. So you want to understand that part of the process. Then, are you using the right bait? Are you reaching out? Are you cold emails? Yeah, very cute. No one read it. Are you doing your best to get the warm intros? Are you finding the right way to approach these investors? So, you may in this case be reaching out to the right people, but you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Right. Or you may be getting to them and you're talking to them, but then they lose interest because your elevator pitch sucks. Right. Or your deck is bad. And that's not communicating the awesomeness of your startup.
Yeah.
So a little further down the funnel, then you fumble the ball. Or it might be something about the way you're talking about it that's just not inspiring, or you're just saying, oh, we have no competition. Yeah, sure you don't. There could be stuff like that. So what you really want to do if you're not getting interest is you want to run your diagnostics. Right? Run it down, like all the failure points, and figure from the top of the funnel down, try to figure out where it is. Now, if you happen to have investors already from prior rounds, they're in your court, see if maybe they can help you figure out where things are going off track.
Yeah. How do you stay current on market trends and what's going on in your industry?
That's really tough. I don't know how generalists do it. And I feel like in some ways they don't, and they like it because they can deep dive into different industries. It's tricky, right? So you could spend all day just reading articles and reading articles. If you're doing it right and you're talking to the startups and the startups are coming to you because you have a good profile and they're seeing your articles, you're at conferences, you're staying current because you're getting the best startups come to you.
Yeah.
I also, since, again, I have a strong bias towards platform-based investing. I was always about, especially at Dream when we did the customer sprints, always about talking to the customers.
Yeah.
The customers for the startups. Since we were B2B, or in some cases B2B2C type startups primarily, it meant I could talk to large developers, large owner-operators of buildings, property managers, architects, real estate agents and brokerages. I could talk to that constellation of potential customers, again, at conferences or, just reaching, I would say pick up the phone and call, but God forbid you make an unannounced, unplanned call. But, I'm what, you mean call someone?
Right now?
Really?
I'm supposed to pick this up?
Yeah. It's what am I, a Jehovah's Witness? I can knock on their door unannounced? I've become very millennial that way. So that's it, right? And I get it from kind of both sides. You get a sense of what are you seeing? What's interesting you? I have to be a little careful on the customer side because, the old Henry Ford adage, if you asked people what they wanted, they said a better buggy whip.
Yeah.
So you have to drill into what the underlying issues are. What have you given up on ever seeing, right? Or, what's insoluble sometimes. So that's the way you do it. You just got to get out there and get as close to the ground as you can. And it varies. If you're a later stage investor, you do it differently. But if you're at the early stage, that's largely how you're doing it.
So this question is going to reflect more on my life than yours, potentially. But you have kids.
Yeah.
You're an investor. You're getting a lot of inbound. You got to stay up on top of the market trends. So how do you stay healthy mentally, emotionally, and physically?
I'm going to roll back and just give you one other thing.
Yeah.
I don't need to know absolutely everything that's happening in the world. I don't even need to know absolutely everything that's happening in the industry. I don't even need to see every single startup in my industry.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that I'm seeing a good chunk of them. I just need to find, 10 plus or minus really great companies to invest in a year. And it may bother me that I missed one that's like a unicorn.
Yeah.
But like sipping from a fire hose in some cases.
Yeah.
You're not going to get everyone, or you're not going to close every deal. Like they may go with a different fund for reasons that make absolutely no sense to you because they should take your money. So, and it's the same with startups. Like you don't have to win every customer that you want to try. You don't have to nail everything. You just need to get enough. And, by enough is like a big hurdle to begin with that, that you're going to succeed. So how do I manage like sanity, healthy sense of humor, right? You just can't take any of it personally. You got to like be able to compartmentalize, kind of move on. I happen to observe Sabbath, so for 25 hours every week, my phones and TV are off.
It's really good.
So it's a forced cleanse.
Yeah.
There was actually a movement started, I think about 15 years ago called Tech Shabbat, where people would just turn off their phones and their email for like 24, I don't know if they 24 hours. I think they might have done like, morning to night on one day.
Yeah.
But whatever it is, it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Right? It makes a big difference when it's an absolute red line and you're out. It's tough the first couple of times if you're doing it cold.
Yeah.
But it makes a big difference because you can't really cleanse if like you take a lunch break, for instance.
Yeah.
So I do that. And then I, in my case, I'll run once or twice a week. I don't love running, but for some people, that's their mind cleanse. I probably watch a little more TV than I should or read. That's also a mind cleanse. I call it rotating the crops.
Yeah.
Right? You just got to do something that's a little bit different, exercises different parts of your mind or body, and it lets the part that's kind of otherwise always on lie fallow for a bit. And if you don't, the creativity just dies.
Yeah.
So you gotta find a little time, and I find it works better when it's set in your calendar. It's fixed, like Sabbath. Things like running, I usually run at a certain time, but if things get busy, I move it. So when I say I run once or twice a week, I run once because on Sunday I can kind of control it. The rest of the week, it sometimes happens, sometimes it doesn't because, I can only talk to this guy then.
Yep.
So, and before I know it, it's Friday and I haven't run since Sunday.
Yeah, I actually switched to an appointment-based workout because then I know when I'm
yeah. If you're paying somebody to train you, then you're like, hell, I'm going.
I got to go.
Yeah. And that works too.
It's done. Yeah.
That works
Because
too.
when I would run, I would just, 11 o'clock, maybe 11:30 or 10
I know, all of a
like,
sudden it's
go
4 o'clock in the
anytime.
afternoon.
Yeah. Go anytime, but I don't feel like it.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to go this Sunday. But oh my God, it was so cold.
So cold.
I didn't even want to walk across the inner courtyard to go for the gym in like, we have a twin buildings. They share a boiler, but like to get to the gym, I had to go across 100 feet of exposed interior courtyard.
Yes.
And I'm like, it's just too cold.
It was very cold.
I could have done it on the way there, but to come back sweaty and wet in the other direction wasn't happening.
Any last words before we close out this episode?
Like startup related words or just in general?
Startup-related words, yeah. Drop some wisdom.
I read a book. I hated the book, but it has the best first line of any book I've ever read.
Okay.
The book is Anna Karenina. Leo Tolstoy. They made me read it in high school.
Yeah.
And I just think it's like a soap opera and I hate it. But the first line of the book in the translation I read said, all happy families are the same. All unhappy families are unhappy in their own distinct way or a dramatic way. I can't remember. And I feel like that's true of startups. The startups that make it because they've avoided dying in all the ways they need to avoid dying.
Yeah.
And the ones that like blow up, they've all blown up in different, sometimes spectacularly dramatic ways, and sometimes just they go out like a light. So if you're a startup, your goal, in very real ways, not to die.
Yeah.
Right? One of the ways to do that is to place a lot of small bets. Test before you do it. If you're, a physical product or an e-commerce company, you're living and dying on, how you can get people to your website to buy it. Before you do anything, do a Google AdWord buy or Facebook ad, whatever it is you're using. Put $100, send it to like a BS site, and just prove out that part of your model. If you're a freemium business model, and you live and die by what percentage of the people go to the top top tier.
Yeah.
You don't need to build all those features out. put up a bogus page that says, here are the new features, here how much you charge, buy now. And people can click the buy now and it's coming soon.
Yeah.
I had one company, they actually had built all those features, but because they were foreign, they couldn't get a merchant account. So they couldn't connect the credit card.
From Costa Rica.
Oh, you know the guys,
Yes,
maybe.
I read it's in the book.
Oh, it's in the book. Yeah, sorry, I forgot I had that in the book. So here's the cool part. They actually had the customer put their credit card in as they're finishing the purchase. It didn't go anywhere. It never left the user's computer. And it popped up, hey, congrats, you have 2 months free. But they wanted that process to be so perfect from the customer's perspective that the data they could rely on.
Yeah.
So I want to say to the startups out there, remember, if you succeed, it's because you've done all these things well enough that nothing killed your company.
Yeah.
Right. So you'll be kind of the same that way. And the startups that I see that make it, other than like the total blind luck, like Forrest Gump style, like wandering into like, good fortune, they all do it because they will de-risk their startup with these little tests as much as possible before they do it. They will test the site on a mock-up with people before they code. They will test the ad buy. They'll test the conversion. Anything you can do for free or for a couple of bucks to turn an assumption into proof, like that's what you can do to prevent all sorts of time wasting and potentially company killing mistakes.
And soul destroying.
Oh yeah, that's not fun, by the way. In case it wasn't clear, that wasn't fun.
I really appreciate you coming on. This was so wonderful. I feel like I learned a lot, even though this is my business. And I feel like the people listening to this will be learning a lot. And I really did enjoy your book quite a bit. So thank you. The example that you gave of the people from the team from Costa Rica, I lived in Costa Rica for 8 years. So it's stuck in my head. So, very particular example that's stuck right in there. But I really appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm Helena Fogarty, and this was Inside the Fund.